So my session is going to be about UNO platform, which is my favorite topic, as I started contributing to it 3 years ago and haven't stopped since. It's kind of my personal favorite framework to work with, and I'm gonna try to share that excitement for UNO platform with you today and tell you a little bit about what it is, how it can help you, and why it's awesome. So let's get started. All right, so the topic or the problem that we are trying to solve is cross-platform application development. In general, when you're building cross-platform applications, you need to build either multiple different applications, which means you need to have multiple different teams of developers, each proficient in one of those languages. So for example, on Windows, you need Windows developers. On Apple devices, you need Swift developers. On Android, you need Android developers. On the web, you need a lot of JavaScript developers. So having all these teams of developers for a single project is, of course, not efficient in terms of costs, but it's also not efficient in terms of time, because you need to implement everything multiple times. You need to fix bugs multiple times. You need to build every feature multiple times. So it's just very inefficient. In addition, there is a lot of legacy applications that are built for the desktop, and it's hard to take them easily and transfer them to modern web development space. So again, you need web developers, which are probably different people than the people who originally built those legacy Windows applications or desktop applications. So again, it's a lot of code duplication and a lot of rewrites, which is just not efficient. So ideally, we would be searching for a solution that would just hide all these problems, all these platform specifics, and allow you to write a single code base that just runs everywhere. And the solution comes from UNO platform, which is a free and open source solution, which was originally built by Inventive in Canada, and it was then improved and open source during build 4 years ago, I think. And it's a completely free solution that allows you to build single code base applications, which are based on the same API, which means the same languages, C# and XAML, and the same API set as WinUI, which is the modern UI framework for building Windows applications. It tries to give you all the tools you need to build pixel-perfect applications that run everywhere, including Windows, Android, iOS, macOS, Linux, and also the web using WebAssembly. And it has growing and strong third-party ecosystem as well. So you can be rest assured that this platform is not going anywhere, and it's going to be improved over time as we go into the future. The trick that UNO platform is using is that it has the same exact API set as WinUI. So as you can see on this slide, when you have a button in WinUI, it's in Microsoft UI XAML controls button namespace. Then you have the same namespace and the same type with the same members, properties, events, methods, everything in UNO platform. So now you can take the same code base and compile it on Windows against the Windows APIs, and then take it to all the other targets and just compile them against UNO platform, which provides the same API surface and the same functionality that you expect in Windows applications. As for the UI, you are in control of every single pixel of your application. UNO platform is taking kind of a mixed approach where some parts of the rendering are native, some are based on canvas rendering, and you as a developer don't have to care about any platform specifics, and you're just writing XAML code which then looks everywhere the same, or you can customize it to look different on each platform. It's all up to you, and you are in complete control thanks to the fact that you have full templating and styling capabilities of XAML under your fingertips. So let's get started with showing a simple demo, and I will actually start on the web because that's gonna be that's a good way to start with UNO platform. Because if you don't want to install it, or you're deciding if you want to install it into your Visual Studio or not, this is an easy way to start. There is a website called playground.platform.uno. I'm not sure if I can zoom in, not really. So it's playground.platform.uno. And when you load it, you get this two-pane view where on the left side you have XAML, and on the right side you have live preview. And you can now start editing this XAML to see the live the changes live that you're doing on the right side. So if I do hello, you can see that this button will now show up on the right side. And this allows you to quickly play out with UNO platform in the browser without having to install anything. You can even provide some data. There is a place to provide JSON data, which you can then data bind to your contents. So if I write a new item here, hello, you can see that it showed up here among the tips because we have a items control, which is data bound to this JSON list. And because this is just a simple snippet, you can also browse some additional, more advanced samples. So like animation or combo box, where you can pick fonts and it actually changes the font here. And a lot of other samples which are available right in the browser. So you can play with UNO platform, decide if you like it. And if you do like it, then you can start by installing it into your Visual Studio. So I will switch to Visual Studio and actually show you how to install the plugin, which is something which is not required, but it's very helpful because it gives you a set of templates that allow you to quickly get started with building UNO platform applications. So in Manage Extensions window of Visual Studio, I will search for UNO platform. And that will give me the UNO platform solution templates. I have them already installed. If you don't have them installed, you will just select install and then have to restart Visual Studio for the templates to actually install. So when you do install them, you will get a set of new templates in your Visual Studio. So when you select here UNO platform as the target, you will find these templates. And I will quickly tell you what do these templates actually mean. So the most important two are UNO platform application, the classic one, actually, this is the classic one, the Xamarin UWP version. There is a new one, which is based on .NET 6 and .NET 6 Mobile. So the difference between these two is that this Xamarin one is the classic Xamarin Android, Xamarin iOS application, and UWP application. This UNO platform app is the modern one, which is based on .NET 6. But the important fact here is that this template works currently only on the Visual Studio Preview version, because the MAUI tooling, which Microsoft has released or 2 weeks ago on Build, is only stable on preview versions of Visual Studio. So also this template has to run on the preview versions. When Visual Studio 17.3 is released as stable, it will then work in the stable versions as well. So because I am using the stable version of Visual Studio, I will still use this classic template, which is the sort of older one. But even if you start with this one, transitioning to the new modern template will not be that hard. So let me create a .NET North Hello application here. And I will, I forgot to explain the rest of the templates, right? So let me go back just quickly. There is also UNO Platform Library template, which allows you to build multi-platform libraries for UNO Platform. So you can then build some shared controls or some shared utilities that you can reuse across your UNO Platform applications. And there is also cross-platform UI test template, which allows you to build cross-platform UI test libraries that test Xamarin in Android, Xamarin iOS, and WebAssembly applications. So you can then sort of click around your application and make sure that your changes that you do in the future don't break the functionality of your application. Right. So let's go back. I will create the project here and let it load. This actually generates a complex solution which contains one shared project and a lot of platform-specific projects, one platform-specific project for each platform that we target. So if I collapse this, you can see that there is the shared project, which is the place where you as a developer will spend like 99% of your time, because all your shared code will go right into this shared project. And there is the platforms folder where you can find like Android application, iOS application, macOS application, then GTK for Linux. There is Tizen, WPF, UWP, and WebAssembly. So to actually launch the application, you will go through these platform-specific projects and just select the one that you want to start, and then press the green button, which should start up the application. I'll open the main page here. You can see it's very simple Hello World application currently. And when it loads, you should be able to see it right there. It's just a very simple Windows application saying Hello World. Nothing too fancy. So let's try to improve it a little bit. I want to have both Visual Studio and the application next to each other, so I can do live editing with hot reload here. So I will switch the root element to stack panel, and then I will display a slider. Actually, let me switch to UWP here so I get IntelliSense as well. So I will create a slider, which I will name quite originally slider. And I will just add padding so it's nicer here. So you can see there is a slider now, which allows me to pick a value from a range from 0 to 100. And I will also put here a text block, which will be data bound to the slider. So I will do binding element name slider and path value. So now I will just make it a little bit bigger by adding font size like 60. So you can now see it. When I move the slider, the value is automatically updating thanks to the fact that XAML has built-in data binding support. So this is all nice, but I can make it even more interesting by adding some additional controls like checkbox. Is it cool? So you can see a checkbox that can be checked, and maybe a button. Hello. So you can see a simple button here. So Uno platform by definition gives you a lot of basic controls, access to a lot of basic controls like these buttons, checkboxes, form controls, but even more complex controls that we will see later. But this is just a plain Windows application. There is nothing too special about it here because there is no Uno platform involved in this at all. This is just a Windows application running on Windows using Windows APIs. The actual magic will begin when I switch to some other platform. So I will select Android here, but there is one thing that I need to do is to restart Visual Studio, because when I update it to the latest version, it stopped giving me access to Android emulators for new projects. So I have to restart the Visual Studio for it to actually load emulators for some reason. So let me do that, should be quick. And when it loads, we should be seeing emulators here in a moment. And I will move this emulator on this window. Yeah, let's ignore the login. Come on. It takes a little bit, but yeah, here is the emulator. and I will launch the application on the emulator. And while it's building, I will just prove to you that there is no smoke and mirrors. Here in this platforms folder is just a basic main file, which is sort of a bootstrapping for the whole application. And there is a main activity which launches the Windows UI XAML application activity, which is something that is provided by UNO platform. But apart from this, there is no source code here. It's all in the shared project. Technically, in ideal case, you as a developer should reach into these platform-specific projects only to provide your like splash screen or application icons, for example. But apart from that, in 99.9% of time, you should be able to build a whole application inside of that shared project or some shared libraries. All right, so the application has started, and when it launches on the emulator, we should be able to see the same UI that we had on Windows now running on Android. So you can see it's the same thing. When I slide the slider, the value is changing, and I can check the checkbox, click the button. I can even rotate the screen, so you can see that it automatically changes layout as you would expect from an Android application. So it just behaves as Android application, but looks the same as the application that we had just run on Windows. And the cool thing is that UNO platform gives you also the dark theme support. So if I select dark theme on Android, the application will automatically change its theme and now look properly on dark theme, dark side of things. So I didn't have to write any code. It's all provided by the framework itself, and it just works. So that's an example of how UNO platform runs on Android. I will skip iOS and macOS because for those two, you need to have a Mac connected, and I'm currently, my Mac is currently not working properly because Xcode has uninstalled itself or something. So I actually skipped those, but if you run the application there, you would be seeing the exact same UI. And again, with all the theming support. So if you switch to dark theme, the application would look dark on both iOS and macOS. Then we have GTK, which is the platform that supports Linux operating system. So if you would compile this application and take it to Ubuntu, you would be able to see the same UI running on Ubuntu. I will just launch it here on Windows to prove it that it actually works. So when I run it, you can now see the same UI with the same functionality and the same features as we see on Android. Well, actually, I see that I have slightly wrong colors of the screen, so I will turn this off. That's much better now. So sorry about that. I will now switch to WPF, which is our which allows you to actually build WinUI applications, which is the modern Windows UI library, and build those applications for the older versions of Windows. So Windows 7, Windows 8, and some older versions of Windows 10. So if I run this, you will be able to see that UNO platform actually allows you to extend support for older versions of Windows as well, which is kind of cool. And it means also that when Microsoft drops support for some versions of Windows, as it's actually doing now with the recent releases of Windows App SDK, you can still support them using UNO platform and you don't have to skip a beat. So again, the same UI running on WPF. All right. We have seen Windows. So now let's look into the most interesting platform, which is WebAssembly. And I will run it here using iOS Express. And WebAssembly is interesting because it allows Windows developers to finally reach the web without having to learn any HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So when this application runs, we should be able to see the exact same UI as on Windows with the same functionality, but now running in the browser. So this is kind of amazing. And the actual thing that you need to be aware of is that this whole thing is running directly on the client. So if I refresh this, you can see that all the application is loaded into the browser. So there is things like system threading, system diagnostics, classic system collections, concurrency, and so on. All these like classic .NET libraries. But once it's loaded, there are no further network requests. So this is all running in the browser. Basically, it's XAML and C# running in the browser, which is kind of amazing. And of course, because we support the dark theme, if I switch here the browser into dark theme, you will be able to see that the application also responds to dark theme in the browser, and it correctly adjusts itself to look correctly in that theme as well. Right. So that's from a simple demo. And let's go back to the slides to see some more details about what UNO platform brings you. By default, you get access to a lot of built-in controls. And that's not only those simple controls that I shown to you, but also some more complex controls like navigation view, tree view, two-pane view for dual screen devices. There is pager control for paging. There is info bar that gives you like a notification style control and so on. All of these things are fully baked into UNO platform, and you can use them without having to install anything else. And the cool thing is that we are all about reuse. Most of these controls are actually line by line the same thing as Microsoft's WinUI library. We actually take their source code, translate it from C++ to C# and just use it in UNO platform without having to make any changes. And that's all because we have the same API surface. So all those basic styling, templating, and XAML capabilities are the same. So we can build upon that by bringing their controls into our code base without having to make any special changes. Here is an example of date picker, which is extremely complex because it has to support all of these specific ways of how different cultures write dates. And as you can see, it's a huge control, but we were able to actually take it from WinUI, port it to C#, actually take also the unit tests because we have the same infrastructure for unit tests. And we are now able to have the same control without having to have any platform specifics in UNO platform, which is kind of cool. And the great thing is that Microsoft is helping us with this effort by giving us access to some private sources as well. So in case of, for example, focus management, we were able to take the exact same approach that Microsoft is doing for like moving focus between elements in your application. And we have the same exact functionality in UNO platform. And because this is not really open source in WinUI, you can actually go to UNO platform's repo to learn about how focus management works in Windows, which is kind of crazy. And you can learn there how the inner workings of Windows focus management are done. So let's continue with some additional UI capabilities. We give you access to full theming, styling, and templating. So you can style your application however you want. The default design design language is Fluent, which is the Microsoft's Windows-based design language. But we also offer Material Design, which looks like Android applications, and Cupertino Design, which looks like iOS applications. So all these are supported, and you can actually have a iOS-like application running on Android and Windows, for example. In addition, you have full access to animations, so you can animate your application, make it look more fluid, and create some transitions between pages and so on. And you have access to many other UI features like accessibility, which is very important for screen readers. So you can make sure that your application looks and works great for users that have some hearing or viewing disabilities. There is also features for visual states and state triggers, so you can make your application be responsive on small screens and large screens. We have full support for localization, so you can easily localize your application and make it work on multiple different national settings. And very importantly, also you can make your application look different on each platform and actually embed native UI. So if you have some specific library that you want to use, what comes to mind, for example, mapping libraries, then you can take that mapping library, put it into your XAML, and actually use it in, for example, specifically on Android application only. So all this is supported, and it's just up to you how you mix and match things. But UNO platform is not only about UI. There is also a lot of system APIs, those device-specific sensor APIs that the native platforms support, but you would have to learn those platform specifics. So we offer those APIs, again, with the same API surface as on Windows. So here is an example of a few of them, like Launcher, which allows you to launch some URIs. There is Media Player for playback of media, Speech Recognizer to recognize speech. There is Geolocator for GPS, and lots of others. So you can use all of these APIs without having to learn anything platform specific, because it's just the same thing as in Windows. And to show you all this, I have two demos here. One is the gallery application. So I will switch there. And the gallery application is on gallery.platform.uno. And it gives you a preview of all the controls and all the UI features that UNO platform offers. So here we have, for example, buttons on material design. So it looks like Android application. There is Fluent, which is the Windows style. And you can also display Cupertino design, which is iOS style. And most of controls that we support have support for all of these themes. So you can see that all these things look like iOS-styled controls now. And same goes for many other pages here, like you can switch to, for example, Combo Box. You can see Combo Box here, which is a selector of picker-based selector. So again, different style, different theme or on all platforms. So you can play with this application yourselves. There is a lot of samples, and when you browse it, you will basically get an idea on what UNO platform offers out of the box. And you can also download this application from Google Play Store and iOS App Store. So there's another way to get it, and it contains the same content basically. So it's also a good way to try it out on mobile devices. One thing I want to mention here is acrylic. We offer acrylic brush, which allows you to blur the background of a control. And when you're actually running this on macOS, you can blur the background of the window. So you can make a semi-transparent blurred window. So that's pretty nice. You can try it out there. All right. And I have one more demo here, which is at this link, cut.lay. It's actually going to be displayed here in the larger font. So when it loads, there is this cut.lay/APIs. And this example application gives you some samples from the non-UI side of things. So for example, there is network information, which allows you to check if you're connected to a network quite easily by just having one single code, which works everywhere. So if I click here, you can see I'm connected. And if I click Observe Connectivity and simulate that I don't have any network, you can see it automatically switch to this offline mode. And this is all thanks to a C# event that you can subscribe to and then easily check if you're connected or not. So I switch back to online and let's go here. Here's a geolocator. So if I give it access to my geolocation, you can see my latitude and longitude. That is accelerometer, which I cannot show you. This is a desktop PC, but if you run this application on your phone, you will see that you get accelerometer events even from the browser. There is clipboard support, so you can copy things to clipboard and paste. Let's see something interesting here. Vibration, again, run it on a mobile device. When you click this button, the mobile device will vibrate. There's speech recognizer, which is something kind of in preview because it's not really stable in browsers yet, but we can try it out and see if it works. Hello world. Yeah, it kind of does work. So you can see that it allows you to recognize speech and transcript it to text. There is my favorite demo, which is MIDI. And I actually don't have my piano connected to this PC, but behind me there, you can see there is a digital piano. If I go there, just a second. So so I hope you've been able to hear that, but that's this web application running on the digital piano. And when you connect a digital piano to the device, it shows up in the browser, and you can then play notes from that browser on that digital piano. And it works both ways. So if you have for example, if you want to capture what you're playing on the piano, you can also do that. And then that's again a completely cross-platform API, which works on Android, iOS, macOS, WebAssembly, and Windows, just with the same code base. One of the cool things that I can show also is a file system. We have support for file pickers on all platforms. And actually I can, even in the browser, select a application, a folder, for example, here, pictures. When I select it and give access to those files to the browser, you will be able to see the list of files that I have in that browser, in that folder. So if I go to pictures folder, you can see that all those files are there. And I can even create files. So if I say .NET Nord and create the file, I allow browser to make changes, then it will appear in that folder here. So hello.NET North. And I can even write to that file. So if I select it here and say hello world and press write to file, it has now written this update to this file. So you can see that hello world is now inside of that text file. And this is kind of amazing because it's the browser accessing your local file system, so you don't have to upload and download anything. It's just working with your local file system. So this opens up all the scenarios like code editors or text editors in the browser directly working with your local file system. All right. And there is a very new API that was just merged yesterday, which is Gamepad. I cannot actually show it right now because I haven't been able to update this application yet for support of this, but hopefully to tomorrow or day after tomorrow, this sample will work as well. So you should be able then to connect up your game controller, like Xbox controller, to your device and then play on that device and see that all those buttons and like triggers are registered in the browser, which is very fun. All right. So let's go back to the slides, and let's actually move from the UNO platform library itself to the actual platform. Because if you want to, if a framework wants to succeed, it has to have a stable platform behind it. And we actually started this story with the 4.0 release recently, and we're expanding our first-party offering to have more additional capabilities on top of what WinUI normally offers. So we now have Visual Studio Code support. So you can build your UNO platform applications right in Visual Studio Code without having to have the full Visual Studio experience. And it has all the features that you expect, like XAML and C# code completion, XAML hot reload, C# hot reload, and even code behind navigation from XAML. So on this animation on the right, you can see that in action, and it actually allows you to play with UNO platform applications right in Visual Studio Code and build those applications quite easily. Currently, this supports WebAssembly and GTK applications, but in the future, we will have support for mobile platforms as well, because Microsoft will be adding its basic MAUI infrastructure into Visual Studio Code as well. So you will be able to edit and build mobile applications in Visual Studio Code as well. Next up, we are offering a new library called UNO Extensions, which is something completely optional. You can build your applications without it, but it contains a lot of basic building blocks that simplify building of your applications. So you have access to dependency injection, configuration, logging, hosting, and all of these things. And plus my personal favorite, which is navigation, which is notoriously hard to build for mobile applications. And UNO Extensions offers a lot of useful ways to navigate in your applications and simplify managing of different pages and different view models. So I definitely recommend to check this out. It's something that might speed up your software development a lot. We also support or provide a new library called UNO UI Toolkit, which gives you some additional UI controls on top of what you normally get from WinUI, because we noticed that WinUI does not offer any bottom tab bar or navigation bar components. So all these controls are offered as part of UNO UI Toolkit, and you can use them across all platforms again. So from Windows to Android to WebAssembly, it all works everywhere. Right. And of course, any platform is as strong as its third-party ecosystem. So UNO platform offers a lot of third-party libraries. You can use any .NET Standard 2 library in UNO platform applications. You can also use third-party controls from Infragistics, Syncfusion, and so on. And you can also use presentation frameworks and VM frameworks like Prism, Reactive UI, or also the Community Toolkit and MVVM. So we have, I have some example of Infragistics controls here. So there's a lot of charting, data grid type of controls and so on. Again, working across all the targets. And we have also Syncfusion integration. So there are charting controls like column chart, bar chart, and so on. So in this animation, you can see how it works in the browser. And again, you can build line of business applications using these controls. And one of the recent additions to the UNO platform is Figma, which is kind of a great thing for building UIs. As I don't know about you, but I'm not a really good designer. So having someone else design applications for me would be very beneficial. And thanks to Figma, you can now design UNO platform applications quite easily by just using your Figma skills and then exporting all that content into UNO platform. So the Figma support consists of two things: a component library, which is all the controls that UNO platform supports, like buttons, date pickers, and so on. And there is live preview plugin, which allows you to see live preview of that Figma design that you created. And then when you're satisfied with what you created, you can generate XAML code and then bring it into your UNO platform application. So you just copy and paste it into your Visual Studio, and you can then run it without having to make any changes. And it will be the same design that you just created in Figma. And for Figma, I have a small example here. So if I run Figma, I just want to mention that I'm not a Figma expert. So it will be a very basic demo, but it should give you an idea of how it works and how you can utilize it to design applications. So I have this example application loaded here, and you can see it's like multi-screen application containing like a commerce-like application. And if I select one of those screens and I right-click into plugins and select UNO platform, it will actually load a WebAssembly application into Figma. And this WebAssembly application allows you to live preview your design. So if I select this page and click refresh, I will be able to see that page live in a browser on WebAssembly. So I can enter some text, click the login button, and it's basically live preview of that same design. And if I make changes, it will be actually shown in that preview as well. So if I switch the text box to outlined and refresh it, you can see that it's now a different design because it's the outlined style of text box in material design. So this is a very easy way to design your application. And when you're satisfied, you can go to the XAML page and you get the full XAML of that page. So you can copy and paste it into your application and then just run it without having to make any changes or having to write that XAML yourself, which is very useful and speeds up the development process a lot. All right. So let's go back to the slides. In terms of sustainability for the platform, you of course need to have some stable income or revenue stream. And UNO platform is in a safe place here because it has a lot of existing customers. There's actually hundreds of applications built on top of UNO platform in the stores already. And there are also some big customers like TradeZero, which is a trading company which is building a mobile specific application for Android and iOS. And it's actually using a lot of features, including charting and so on. And it works great on mobile devices. And there is also Kawa, which is a like construction project management and planning company, which provides a full-fledged, very complex WebAssembly application that's running all the latest and greatest. So actually they have now a preview of their application running in .NET 7. And they actually took their application from WPF, from desktop, and brought it to web using UNO platform. And it's kind of amazing what they built. And they are using all the advanced functionalities as well, like file pickers and the things that I showed you before, like saving and opening files. All this is there. And it's kind of amazing how they built it. So let's just finish up with some additional demos here. So I'm sure you're familiar with Calculator from Windows, which has been actually open sourced by Microsoft. And UNO platform has taken this code and brought it to the web and also to mobile devices. So you can load it from calculator.platform.uno. And it's the same application just running in the browser. Although in terms of design, it's a little bit different because it's based on the older version of the calculator, not the Windows 11, but Windows 10 version. And you can see that it has all the features like volume conversion, so you can see how many milliliters are things and so on. And all these advanced features like programmer keyboard, for example, and so on. So you can try this out in the browser or also on Apple App Store and Google Play Store. And specifically on iOS, it's probably the best free calculator application. So I definitely recommend you to get it there and try it. And one more example I want to show you is from NuGet.org. So if you search for any package for .NET, for example, Intelisense-JSON, which is the most downloaded one, you can then see on the right side, there is a button called NuGet, Open in NuGet Package Explorer. And when you click this, it actually loads a UNO platform WebAssembly application, which downloads the package and analyzes it, or actually exports it and analyzes it. It gives you access to some metadata about that package. So there's some package info, like information about health of the package, its dependencies, and so on. And you can also browse the contents. So if you go here into DLL, you can then see assembly attributes, PDB info, metadata references, and sources as well. And you can also preview images and also see XML files, for example, in their text form using the Visual Studio Code editor here. So this is very useful and allows you to analyze NuGet packages, and not only from NuGet.org, but you can also open a local file from your file system and analyze it here. So this is all thanks to our cooperation with Claire Novotny. So she helped us a lot with building this, and thanks to her, we can now have UNO platform application hosted on NuGet.org as well. So I'm sending my thanks. And to finish up my presentation, I just want to prove that UNO platform runs everywhere. So here is a Tesla browser, and you can see it's running the UNO platform calculator application. So you can now build application in C# and XAML that runs on Tesla, because Tesla has a closed ecosystem. You cannot publish any applications there, but you can open websites. So you can now build .NET applications running on a Tesla. Finally, we have full-fledged documentation, which we have recently completely rewritten from scratch. It contains all the information about fundamentals of UNO platform, about UNO extensions, about UNO UI themes, UNO UI toolkit, and all the non-UI APIs as well. So you can go there and learn everything about UNO platform and everything about how everything works. So finally, how to get started? You can go to platform.uno to look for tutorials and some basic first steps. You can talk to us on Discord. We are always available. We have people in Canada. We have me in Europe, and we have also Nick Randolph in Australia. So we have full coverage in all time zones. And if you reach any issues and need any help, you can contribute on github.com/UNO platform and post your questions there.